Welcome to Girl Choose Yourself, where we're trading self-doubt for self-trust and settling for soaring. I'm Emer Zone, your host, and together we're building the confidence to create lives so deliciously bold that they scare us a little, but in the best possible way. Because life's too precious to stay cozy in our comfort zones. It's time to choose ourselves for lives that are fabulous and soulfully fulfilling. So let's go. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. This is your host, Emer Zone. Today we're talking about a problem that many of us face to varying degrees, and that is procrastination. We've got a lot of energy at the beginning of the year about starting new things, changing things up, embarking on new adventures, committing to new goals, and procrastination can be an issue that's going to affect us at any time, but it's particularly prevalent around a time when we are wanting to make changes, and in the energy of all of the newness, we can make a commitment and then end up slipping into procrastination, and with that comes a lot of other things. A lot of self-judgment then for the procrastination. So a fertile ground for a little bit of an investigation. We're going to look at some of the research around procrastination and how we can help ourselves in this regard. And then we're going to look at how the impact of it isn't gender neutral. There are some issues in our lived experience as women that factor in here too as important context. So we're going to touch on that too. So let's jump in. Here's what I think about procrastination, that it's very much the waiting room that I talk about in the book, Choose Yourself. It's that place where we go when we keep telling ourselves, I'll do that next week, or I'll do that a little bit later. I'll start when the kids are older. I'll start when the kids have left home. I'll start when I've lost weight. I'll start when I feel more confident. I'll start when I have more time. I'll start when I finally know exactly what I want to do and how I want to do it. Things are a little bit too blurred now. And we don't even notice that we're waiting, because it can look very much like, I'm just planning, I'm making a plan. And it really is stalling and kind of occupying this waiting room and procrastinating. And we can stay there for a really long time, and the things that we really want to do can just disappear further and further off into the distance, or disappear altogether. So what does the research say about procrastination and what it actually is? Behavioral scientists and psychologists describe procrastination as a form of self-regulation failure. And that's usually because the task that we are contemplating triggers discomfort, and our brain chooses relief now over results later. One of the strongest explanations is that procrastination is driven by short-term mood repair. So you avoid the task, not because you're lazy, but because you want to feel better immediately. Short-term mood repair. So the task might create a sense of stress or even dread. There might be boredom associated with it, self-doubt, the fear of getting it wrong. And procrastination, in that regard, sort of offers the relief. It's a solution. And that's why it's really sticky. It can be really easy to slip into, because it works. It works. It gives the short-term mood repair, the relief for those few minutes, half an hour, and then it bites you later in the ass. Researchers have found that procrastination tends to show up most in a number of particular situations, and here are the three that they say where it shows up most. It shows up most when a task feels unpleasant, unclear, overwhelming, or emotionally loaded. The second category for when it shows up most is when the reward for the action is delayed. And thirdly, it shows up most when you doubt your ability to do it well, or you want it to be perfect. So the perfectionism really can impact procrastination as well. So you end up choosing short-term comfort option, which seems to provide a reasonable solution in your mind. It's sort of protective. So you might scroll. We all have our favorite ways of procrastinating. Maybe you snack. Maybe it's a cleaning frenzy. Maybe it's endless planning. Maybe I'll get a new planner. I need a whole load of colored highlighters. Maybe I just need to do a huge mind map on this. And there's this point where planning, and we know when planning is beneficial, you can sense it. And then there's the planning in inverted commas, which is sort of escapism from action, and that's the procrastination time. And that really means that our brain is prioritizing emotional relief. So let's look at some strategies that can be helpful for us when we sense that we're in procrastination and we need some tangible tools to get ourselves in motion again. So here's 3 strategies from the behavioral science world that are very clear and very practical, and I have used all of these. So the first one is to make the first step really small, microscopic even. Shrink the first step until it's impossible to refuse, and that's going to be different for everybody. If the task feels threatening, if it feels overwhelming, if it gives a sense of dread or stress, we want to remove that. We want to minimize that. We want to make it small, shrink it, microscopic even. So for example, I need to write this book that I've been talking about forever and that I've been circling, becomes I'm going to open the document and I'm going to write for 5 minutes. I need to start this new business. I've been talking about it forever. I've owned the domain name and done nothing about it. Becomes I'm going to write one offer. I'm going to describe one offer I want to create with this business. And then the one that we can all relate to, I'm sure, get fit, becomes put my gym shoes on and walk outside for 5 minutes. It can even be put my gym shoes on. Do the admin that I've been avoiding becomes open the laptop and just do one email. So your job isn't to finish the whole thing, no matter what that thing is. Your job is just to kind of put the key in the ignition and start the engine on that. Because once you begin, the dread diminishes. Tip 2. So this is what researchers call an if-then plan. Instead of I'll do it later, you pre-decide what to do when a certain triggering moment, the if, arrives. So it can sound like if it's 9 a.m. and I sit down with my cup of coffee, then I open the document and write for 10 minutes. If this is the situation, if this condition is met, then this action follows. And you can think about that in terms of whatever your particular thing is that you want to get going on that you've been avoiding. Think about that first tip, that one microscopic step, and then think about an if-then, because the if-then is one of these habits that we then create. So if I feel overwhelmed, then I do the smallest next step. That's almost combining the two of those tips. This matters because it removes the negotiation that we often end up spiraling into, and then we feel really crap about ourselves often. We know that we're sort of lying to ourselves in the midst of all of that. Then we go for the soothing procrastination, the scrolling, whatever it is that we're looking to do to kind of soothe us for that time, to give us that short-term relief. And then afterwards, it comes to bite us in the ass, and there can be a lot of self-judgment, self-criticism. The inner critic, the internal narrative is pretty hostile and judgmental, and that brings its own level of pain and regret. So procrastination really thrives on vague intentions. When the intention is vague, it's so much easier to end in this internal negotiation and procrastination. But our brains respond much better when we have an if-then, a clear trigger with a clear accompanying action. So that's one that you can try. I find it really helpful. The third tip is about bringing the reward closer, because the benefits of action are often delayed. If you think about the get fit, if you have a goal to get fitter this year and you are not very fit. I'm not very fit at the moment, and I'm somebody who've run marathons and been incredibly fit, and I'm not very fit at the moment. So if you're far away from what that goal is, maybe it's not losing a few pounds, maybe it's losing a few stone, maybe it's, I've been very sedentary and you've not even been going out for 15 minutes walks anytime. The reward of get fit feels like it's like a mountain to climb, or it's just so distant. So we need to bring that reward a little bit closer, because if we don't, it's so much easier for our brain to make that choice of comfort now rather than results later. And one of the best ways around that is to create a small reward in the process. So for me, when I am on a get very fit journey, I do this often. I will do things, for example, when I'm looking to train for a marathon, a longer run, I will start, like now I could not run what was a really easy, super easy. I could not run easily 5 kilometers now. I could not run 3 miles now. I would be like, oh my God, I've never done this before in my life. This is awful. So I have to set myself rewards to make that I'm able to run 26.2 miles seem like something that I can carry on towards. And the rewards for me are, after the first small run, that I will do something for me. I will ritualize a reward. And it's not like I'm going online and shopping and buying myself stuff. It really is like I will take myself out for a coffee. It's really small stuff, and I need the reward less as I build the momentum of moving closer to fitness. Comes in fits and starts, and it plateaus and all the rest of it. But like progress towards any goal, it is self-nourishing if you're choosing the right goals, obviously, and it's aligned with your values. And we'll go into that in more detail. I'll tell you a little bit about something that can help us there towards the end of the episode. But yeah, small rewards, even something tiny, because our motivation to keep going usually, it always arrives after we're in motion. Once we have some experience of the effort and feeling that we are in this, it's easier to go longer without these rewards. But at the beginning, I find them really helpful because it's the hardest to begin. It's the hardest time. Okay, now I want to talk about something that doesn't get acknowledged very often, because when I'm reading about procrastination, and I'm reading the behavioral scientists and the psychologists talking on this topic, and what I don't often see, if ever, is anything about context, really. Consider this, or I invite you to consider this, because I think context matters hugely as women when it comes to procrastination. Because most of us, as we are growing up, have learned to almost self-objectify. We need to control ourselves, control our bodies. There's the grooming, there's the self-monitoring, the dieting, the wardrobe, the hair, the makeup, we become a project for ourselves. There's a lot of messaging in our environments that tell us who and how we should be and what we should look like and what is valued and what is not. And all of this is constant self-surveillance and self-maintenance in this way. It's expensive, very expensive, and it is exhausting. mentally, emotionally, it takes a toll. And it takes up an insane amount of time and mental bandwidth. And it's not because women are shallow, and it's definitely not because women are vain. It's because we're paying attention to the context and to our environment and to what's rewarded, what's valued, what's not. And we learn through that experience that our appearance and desirability and being presentable opened doors, and it mattered, and it was important, and it was sort of almost regulated societally. And not playing along often had consequences for us in many different ways. So it's not just beauty stuff, it's not just that industry, it's also the level of self-vigilance. There's a constant calibration. Think about in the workplace. You learn to edit yourself. You learn what is the acceptable way to behave as a woman and what's not going to go so well. Maybe I shouldn't be too direct, not too emotional, not confident, but not too confident. Have my opinions and share them, but don't be too opinionated. Don't be too quiet, you'll be overlooked, but don't be too loud. It's like that, if you've seen the movie Barbie, and there's that famous scene where she's talking about how exhausting it is, all of these messages and rules, and they're impossible to adhere to. I'm sure we've all had that experience. If you say too much, you're kind of difficult. She's a bit difficult. She's a bit strident. You're assertive, and you're a bitch. So all of these, books that gives advice on how to behave here and there, and the correct communication techniques and everything, they're often not incorporating the context that's so important for women. If we speak up and we're very strong-minded, then we're intimidating. And there is a cost for that, a real cost. And we're often learned to just soften things with a smile so that we're not seen as a problem. So we can end up doing this invisible, exhausting mental math all day long. How do I say this without getting punished for it? What's safe to say here? So none of this is gender neutral. And then there's the safety vigilance. There's our personal physical safety, walking to the car at night, being careful what you wear, being careful not to be friendly to that weird person, but not too friendly to somebody else, being careful not to offend someone, texting a friend when you get home, scanning a room without even noticing that you're doing it all the time. So a lot of us are just moving through life with this level of self-vigilance. And then we get to midlife, maybe we get a little bit more chill in some areas, and we're like, okay, I'm kind of finding myself here. I'm really connecting into myself more powerfully now. I'm going to let go some of this caring what everybody else is thinking about me and judging me, and this fitting in and not rocking the boat and all of those things, and really connecting to our power. And then it's oh, we don't want to hear from you. You're an old woman. You're an older woman. Your value has dissipated. You see men of whatever age taking center stage, regardless of competence. Very obvious in the world today. But women, there's this message that, oh, you're aging. You're not so valuable. You need to just kind of go away into the sidelines of your own bloody life. And then, by the way, we're going to tell you that, ooh, aging, and we're going to sell you a whole load of stuff called anti-aging. And then you will see the extent to which some women will go to, and each to their own, but you have women, having all sorts of surgeries to capture their youth because they're told that's the way they're valuable. So we're dealing with the accumulated impact of years of performing, editing, monitoring, and managing ourselves. And this is why procrastination particularly can feel very sticky for women, because starting isn't just starting. Starting is becoming visible and taking up space and saying, I'm still here. And that for women, that act for women, that's not a neutral act. That's a real declaration, and you are kind of going against the unwritten but very felt messages in society that older women, not so valuable, you need to disappear, nobody's interested. And so that idea of putting yourself out there and starting something new and defying that can feel even riskier. So I just wanted to speak to that and to say that we really need to acknowledge it rather than bury it and think and then judge ourselves for not doing the thing, because we're not acknowledging this burden, this stressor, this influence that is invisible in many ways, but is definitely felt in our nervous system, in our emotional world. And I think we have to give space for that and to bring a lot of compassion to it and not just try to, white knuckle it through these things and suppress our emotions, because feelings need to be felt. And just this final message on this, I think that when women are so busy fixing themselves, we're not creating, we're not building, we're not leading, we're not starting the thing that we've been dreaming about for forever. So yes, procrastination is emotional regulation, but the emotional load underneath it is shaped by the reality of being a woman. So I hope you found this episode helpful. I have created something recently which may serve you if you'd want to dive a little bit deeper into this subject. It's an audio companion, really. So it's like having me, your coach, in your ear, a 14-day guided audio experience designed to get you out of the waiting room, to stop procrastinating and getting you in motion and into your next bold chapter. You'll find all the details in the show notes. Okay, that's it for this week. I'll see you next time. Have a great week. Bye. Thanks so much for tuning into the episode this week. I hope you got a lot out of it, and if you did, please share it with somebody who you feel would benefit. And leave a review. Always greatly appreciated. Lots of free and paid resources to take things a step further. You can find those in the show notes. And hey, if nobody's told you this yet today, you are amazing, and the world is a far more beautiful place because you're here with us all. Stay cool. Bye.